The Texas heat wave brings new urgency to efforts to protect people who work outdoors.
Texas cities are in a battle with the state for local control, but we're going to do everything possible to protect our most vulnerable workers.
How concerns about worker safety are fueling a power struggle between cities and the state that could play out in court. New developments in the battle over the water barriers on the border. How the orange obstacles are pitting Governor Abbott against the White House over who controls border policy. New estimates show the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease in Texas counties. We examine reasons why some places have higher numbers and how the data could help get resources to the people most in need.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Some Texas cities are in a power struggle with the state. In the past week, San Antonio joined Houston to sue over a law set to take effect on September 1st. Opponents call it the Death Star bill, saying it destroys local ordinances for things like labor and environmental regulations. Supporters say cities should be banned from having rules that go beyond state law. They say that keeps regulations consistent for businesses, which is good for jobs.
There was concern from the small business community in particular that cities were starting to step outside of their regulatory jurisdiction and regulate things that had always been traditionally regulated on the state and or federal levels.
Specific questions over who has what authority might have to be settled in court. San Antonio's assistant attorney says the bill's language is vague and will make the city subject to frivolous lawsuits.
It's so vague, we aren't sure at this point which provisions of the code are subject to challenge under it. You could go out and ask 20 different very high-level attorneys, tell me which of these ordinances are impacted by it, and you'd probably end up with 20 different lists of ordinances because it's so vague.
One big concern is the law's potential effect on laws meant to protect workers, including regulations to require rest breaks. However, supporters say federal law already guarantees the right to a safe work environment. But to protect outdoor workers, some local officials in Texas are fighting the state over ways to regulate labor standards. And as our Ryan Chandler reports, the issue is getting the attention of the White House.
Heat is the #1 killer, more than tornadoes and floods combined.
Looking up over Texas's booming cities, you can't escape the cranes or the searing hot sun. Those who work under both are battling the most dangerous element.
Just as these summers continue to get this warm, we need to have ways to be able to mitigate that, to keep people safe. That's where we need a lot of this help.
That danger brought Texas to the West Wing on Thursday.
San Antonio hit an all-time heat index high of 117 last month.
President Biden announced new measures to protect workers as Texas cities fight the state for their own protections.
Texas cities are in a battle with the state for local control.
As San Antonio sues the state to keep its local labor laws, the White House is stepping in, directing the Department of Labor to ramp up inspections of construction sites and investing $7 million to help the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration forecast extreme weather events sooner.
Steps we're taking to help communities prepare, plan, and recover and make our nation more resilient in future heat waves.
Texas will soon preempt thousands of local ordinances in a new law aimed at removing barriers to business, including potentially local water break requirements on construction sites. San Antonio joined Houston this week to stop the law before it takes effect.
We're going to do everything possible to protect our most vulnerable workers, especially those outdoor workers, for basic things like being able to access water breaks.
Ryan Chandler, State of Texas.
A Texas Congressman is trying to get the Biden administration to do more to protect workers. Austin Democrat Greg Casar staged a thirst strike on the steps of the Capitol in Washington. He went without drinking water for several hours. Casar was joined by workers, union leaders, and members of Congress. The event was meant to draw attention to the call for federal rules to require rest and water breaks.
Whether you work in a warehouse or you're digging a trench or you're building a roof, you should have the right to be able to come off a scaffold, stop working if you're feeling sick, and get a drink of water.
Casar ended his strike after nearly 9 hours. Critics dismissed the effort as a stunt. Kassar called it a step toward what he called positive change. Data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows the risk workers face in hot conditions. Since 2011, more than 400 workers have died due to environmental heat exposure, and thousands more are hospitalized every year. Since the start of the decade alone, there have been 92 work-related heat deaths, with 56 in 2020 and 36 in 2021. Controversy brings unwanted attention to Texas A&M, how accusations of political pressure affecting academics are leading to change on campus. The legal battle over the border has Texans taking sides, the fallout after a federal lawsuit to make the state take down a buoy barrier on the Rio Grande. Support for gun control on the campaign trail. We put a candidate's claims in context in the race for U.S. Senate in Texas.